What if I told you that at the stroke of midnight on January 1st, 2000, the world could have ended? Not because of war, not because of disease, but because of a computer glitch. A simple flip of the calendar, just 2 digits changing from 99 to 00. This was the moment humanity truly feared technology might turn against us. And the scariest part, no one really knows how close we were to a global catastrophe. As the year 2000 approached, a wave of anxiety washed over the planet. Governments, scientists, and engineers all shared a chilling belief the global computer system could collapse. Imagine for a moment hospitals going dark, airports grinding to a halt, the entire banking system, your life savings, just gone. And most terrifying of all, the world's nuclear weapons, all controlled by computers that might simply stop working or worse, misfire. This wasn't science fiction. This was a very real, very tangible fear. Billions of dollars were poured into a desperate race against time to prevent total chaos. They called it the Y2K Bug, and it was a ghost in the machine that haunted the entire world. So what exactly was this bug? The answer is almost comically simple. For decades, to save precious and expensive computer memory, programmers had used a shortcut. They wrote years using only the last 2 digits. For example, 1997 was just 97, 1999 was just 99. It was efficient, it was clever, and it worked perfectly. But it had a built-in expiration date. What would happen when the clock hit January 1st, 2000? Computers would see the year change from 99 to 00, and that's where the problem started. Would the computer interpret 00 as the year 1900? Would it think time was going backward? Would it just see the number as an error and crash? Nobody knew for sure. A system that calculates interest on a loan might suddenly think 100 years had passed overnight, bankrupting millions. A hospital computer scheduling life-saving surgery might just delete the appointment, thinking it was a century old. A power grid controller might shut down, unable to process the date. At the stroke of midnight, the entire digital world, the invisible architecture of modern life, was poised to be thrown into absolute confusion. Or so everyone thought. The lead-up to the new millennium felt like the countdown to an apocalypse. The panic was global and it was intense. Governments around the world created emergency task forces, treating the Y2K bug with the same seriousness as a military invasion. News reports were filled with dire predictions. The media ran story after story about the potential for airplanes to literally fall from the sky because their navigation systems would fail. People, genuinely scared, started withdrawing all their money from banks, hiding cash under their mattresses. Families began stocking up on canned food, bottled water, and batteries, preparing for a world without power or services, as if bracing for a nuclear winter. It wasn't just civilians. Military bases around the globe went on high alert. In the United States, the Pentagon ordered top generals to remain near nuclear command and control centers through the New Year's transition, just in case the automated defense systems went haywire. The world was preparing for the worst. This wasn't just a few news articles. It was one of the largest, most expensive, and most coordinated global operations in peacetime history. And yet, today, almost no one talks about it. It's been reduced to a punchline, a memory of a time we all overreacted. But was it an overreaction? Or was the real story happening behind the scenes, hidden from public view? Here's the part of the story that most people don't know. While the world was panicking, a secret war was being waged. Behind the scenes, an army of programmers, tens of thousands of them, worked day and night in a frantic, global effort to rewrite the digital DNA of our world. They were the unsung heroes of the Y2K crisis. Their battlefield was lines of code, and their mission was to find and fix every single instance of the 2-digit date problem. They went through everything. Banking systems that processed trillions of dollars, hospital systems that kept people alive, the intricate networks that controlled satellites, power plants, and water treatment facilities. And yes, even the world's nuclear missile systems. Every critical piece of infrastructure you can imagine was audited, patched, and tested. It was a monumental task. The cost was staggering. Estimates range from $300 to $600 billion spent worldwide. An absolutely colossal investment to prevent a disaster that might not even happen. Think about that. We spent the equivalent of building entire cities just to fix 2 tiny digits. As the final seconds of 1999 ticked away, these programmers had done all they could. The fixes were in place. The patches were deployed. but no one could be 100% certain it was enough. And then, the world held its breath. Midnight, January 1st, 2000. Time zones across the world crossed the threshold, one by one. In cities from Sydney to London to New York, people counted down. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. And then, nothing. The lights stayed on. The television broadcasts continued without a glitch. The phones still worked. Airplanes kept flying safely across the oceans. The world's financial markets opened the following Monday without a hitch. The missiles stayed silent in their silos. The world was still here. A collective sigh of relief echoed across the globe. And almost immediately, the narrative shifted. The fear turned into laughter. The Y2K bug became the butt of jokes, a symbol of mass hysteria and media-driven hype. People said it was all a hoax, a scam cooked up by IT consultants and programmers to make a quick buck. The crisis that never was. But experts, the very people who worked on the front lines of this digital battle, believe something else entirely. Maybe, just maybe, nothing happened. Because humanity prevented it. Maybe the disaster was real, and we just managed to step out of its way at the very last second. But here's the twist, the question that almost no one asks: what if we had done nothing? What if we had just ignored the warnings and let the clock tick over? We actually have a few clues. Some countries and smaller organizations didn't have the resources or the political will to fully update their systems. They essentially rolled the dice. And in many of those places, the Y2K bug wasn't a joke. It was real. In some parts of the world, emergency pages used by doctors and firefighters stopped working. Minor glitches were reported at power plants. A few older satellites had to be manually rebooted after their systems malfunctioned. In one documented case, a prison's computer system, due to a faulty timestamp, accidentally calculated that several inmates had completed their sentences and released them. These weren't world-ending catastrophes, but they were evidence. They were the small tremors that hinted at the massive earthquake we might have dodged. It suggests that we may have avoided a global disaster not because the threat was fake, but because the global response was so massive and so effective. We didn't see the building collapse because we had spent years reinforcing its foundations. The Y2K bug may have been the first moment in history when humanity, as a collective, was forced to confront our profound dependence on the fragile digital world we had built. It was a stark reminder of how quickly control could slip from our hands. One tiny overlooked flaw in a system we barely understood had the potential to unravel civilization. It taught us that the technology that empowers us also makes us incredibly vulnerable. So, this brings us to the deep question that still hangs in the air, 2 decades later. Was the Y2K panic a massive, embarrassing overreaction? A case of global hysteria fueled by a 24-hour news cycle? Or was it the disaster that never happened precisely because we all panicked and did something about it? Was it humanity's finest hour, a moment where we came together to avert a crisis of our own making? What do you think? Did we overreact, or did we save ourselves from the first true digital catastrophe? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you want to uncover more of these hidden turning points in history, the stories that slip through the cracks, make sure to subscribe. Because sometimes the smallest detail, like a number in a computer, can change the fate of the entire world. Thanks for watching.